Hello guys and girls, this is going to be my review of the latest episode of Star Trek Picard. It's episode 5 of the first season and it is called Stardust City Rag. So this is definitely a step up from last week's episode, which was a disappointment. It's quite a dark episode at times. It also has some really good comedies too, but the big cliffhanger from last week was, of course, S1E05 appearing. She was beamed up by Picard and his crew. She was part of this other ship who essentially helped them out when they were under fire. And so we get a bit more into her backstory here and why she's sort of gone rogue, sort of gone into business for herself. So the opening scene is again a flashback. I should actually say this episode is directed by Jonathan Frakes, who directed last week's as well, and he does a pretty solid job. I know he's directed quite a few episodes of TV. Pretty sure he directed an episode of Roswell, and also has done directing on Star Trek Discovery. So he's quite experienced at this point in directing episodes of TV. So second week running, he directs an episode of Picard, and I've seen his name on the cast list, so I know at some point Riker is going to show up. But anyway, we get this flashback at the beginning, and we see S1E05. S1E05. I'll just call her Seven so that I don't say the name wrong. But we see Seven show up on this ship to try and save a Borg who is essentially being dismantled by this character who we later learn her name is Bajazi. And so Seven tries to save him, shoots at Bajazi, and it's then revealed then this is a Borg, this is one of her own, because she says you're like a son to me. And it's a really brutal scene. First of all, in the first part of it, where he's being drilled into by Bajanzi, but then also the fact that Seven has to put him down out of mercy because he's too far gone. So that's a really emotional moment, and that's what she explains later to Picard. She says that she explains the past with Bajanzi, that what we learn is that she collects Borg parts and then sells them off for profit. And we also see in the pre-title part of the episode, then she now has Maddox under arrest. She has him at her mercy, knowing the power he has. So he's held capture on this free cloud planet, where obviously Picard and crew are heading there anyway. So Seven is explaining this past and saying, well, this is why I've gone into business for myself, because I'm actually helping less fortunate people who don't have someone to stand up for them. And she sort of takes a shot at Picard in a way, because it's like saying people who were left behind by Starfleet, by the Enterprise, people who you've sort of left behind, if you like. They've suffered because you stopped doing what you were doing and promised to do. And again, there's further suggestions in this episode of the conspiracy at the core of Starfleet, and the fact that they may well be in on this whole scheme. So not only, well, then they would have motivation to kind of stop any resistance to what's going on with the Borgs and the Romulans. And Picard gives there a speech, says basically, you know, he says then that just going on your own, just going as a vigilante, isn't the answer. It causes more problem. But he's, I think, being quite naive. But anyway, they sort of want her on their side. And we're not sure at first if she's going to go for it, but they locate the planet where Maddox is being held. We find out that he's dehydrated, he's sort of very, very weak and at the mercy of Banjanzi and her soldiers. And he tells Maddox, tells Banjanzi that they're on their way, Picard and crew, to try and locate him. So that's extra sort of frustration. But Seven agrees to join them, and says that this is Raffi's suggestion, and we can actually use Seven as a bargaining chip to try and get Maddox back, because she would be valuable in an exchange, and Seven agrees. So we're seeing what a selfless character Seven is, and it's a really strong appearance for her in this episode, having showed up at the end of the last episode. I sort of, all the scenes with her were very good here. I think the performance is on point. She's very striking. Got a lot of presence, and it really gets across just this very focused, determined kind of tunnel vision she has, sort of thing. And again, some interesting tension between her and Picard, some nice moments as well. But that is basically the plan. But there are some lighter touches in the episode. There's some good moments of comedy. Now it is revealed that Dr. Gelati actually had a relationship with Maddox. We know about their past, as he sort of taught her, but it's actually revealed when Gelati is watching a video that there was a romance between the two. So that sort of makes you think then she maybe isn't approaching this in the most stable of states. Then she's maybe very emotionally involved, maybe too much so. But it's quite a moving little scene anyway. But yeah, we do get more lighter touches too in this episode. I think it gets a good mix actually of darker, dramatic stuff, but also the comedy. So another nice little touch of world building is the hologram robots, where they're basically boxing, and it comes up, and Ramos is like, "You've got to punch it, Gelati. You've got to punch it," because it's punching at her, and eventually she just whacks it one, and it's a great little sort of pop moment for her. A great, punch the air type moment. And then things sort of get really quite amusing and quite campy, because before they beam down to Free Cloud, they have to come up with some sort of a cover story. And what they do is they get Reyes to dress up as like this quite flamboyant sort of out of town, kind of like philosopher or traveling man, who has an interest in like buying like Borg sort of parts, and he wants to see Maddox, but he's dressed up all elderly, very flamboyant, very kind of bright colours. It's really funny. He looks the part. It's very, very funny. And we have Picard with a beret and doing a French accent, which is this OTT French accent. So really entertaining stuff. And we see Raffi put to good use in this episode too, because when Rayos is first beamed down and he starts trying to persuade like the soldier to let him in to see Maddox, his bluff is called, or at least the soldier isn't convinced. So then Raffi beams him back up and then tells him, you've got to do this, you've got to say this sort of thing. So it's an ongoing sort of strategy. And I mean, Reyes is still there. It's just like they can talk to like him as he's down there in like his hologram. So yeah, they go down in a group. The only one who stays is Dr. Gelati, because she has to sort of man the controls, if you like. We get an emotional goodbye between Raffi and Picard, although I think you can probably guess then they will see each other again. In fact, they will see each other again before the end of the episode. But probably the most powerful scene of the episode is with Raffi, because she tries to reconnect with her son Gabriel, and he is just mad with her because she left him and his father behind, and he just doesn't understand. She tries to explain that things are more complex than you may think. There were certain conspiracies at play, and there's a surprising reveal where we see Gabriel has a girlfriend who's a Romulan, and that she's actually pregnant, and sort of just because of the way things have gone with the Romulans, I think that puts Raffi on edge a little bit. She's maybe a little bit concerned about his future, but I have to say, Gabriel, no matter what he thinks his mother did, or no matter how he felt abandoned by her, he's kind of a dick in this scene. He's way too harsh on her. He just doesn't want to give any sort of leeway to her, and is just really cold and harsh. And it's a nice sort of meeting when she meets the girlfriend, but yeah, that sort of I think probably creates more tension, the fact that the girlfriend is a Romulan. But really emotional scene. I think Michelle Hurd does a great job in the scene as Raffi. Some great acting, some really good dramatic, emotional reactions in the scene. So very, very well played, and your heart goes out to her. I'm assuming that plot will be revisited, but because of that, because she can't reconnect with him and things go badly, she ends up back on the ship by the end of the episode, which is fine. It was a good sort of scene to have, added something to her character. But yeah, back on Free Cloud, the group of them, Picard and Ramos and is it Eon? I forget the name, but the new crew member from last week. And also Seven, they get in to see supposedly Maddox, but of course Bajanzi's there, and she recognises Seven, and this is when things come to a head. Seven basically whips out her gun, and it becomes clear that she's there for a revenge mission, but things are at stake because they've got them surrounded with guns, so potentially if she goes for Bajanzi, her friends could be killed, and also they might lose the chance to get Maddox. So she's talked into making a trade, and this is Bajanzi's idea, a trade for Maddox and their lives. So Bajanzi's life for her to get Maddox. So that goes ahead, and they beam up, and Picard gives her this mission, and murder isn't necessarily the same as revenge, and this is not the way to go about things. You have to look at the bigger picture, and Seven seems to take that on board. But what happens next is, now she knows that the crew are safe, she then beams back down, and I'm assuming this is unbeknownst to Picard and the rest, because she then actually kills her. She kills Bajanzi, she kills the rest of the guards, and it's absolutely brutal, the effect when she shoots Bajanzi. She literally explodes in blood. It's a really nice effect. But this is a very violent episode, actually. But yeah, it's just showing how ruthless a soldier Seven is, and it's a great little scene, and I think Seven really stands out in this episode. Really impressive. So back on the ship, obviously Bruce Maddox is in a very weakened state, and in this state they're not sure if he'll live or for how long, but he tells Picard about Sanji, about her being the twin to Daju, and obviously being, an android clone. And he tells Picard, I sent her to the artifact, the Borg ship, because to find out what's going on there, to find out what the conspiracy is. And so they decide, well, that's our mission now. We've got to go to the artifact. We've got to find Sanji. And luckily, I'm pleased to say, nothing from the Narek Sanji side of the plot this time, because obviously that's been a weak plot which has dragged the show down so far. But they decide that's the next mission, to go to the artifact. But there's a sting in the tail, a twist, because Gelati is left alone with Maddox by Picard, and it's an emotional scene. She hasn't seen him for years, but she then kills him, sort of out of nowhere. It's a really harsh, cold scene, and it ends with the line, if you'd seen what I saw. So Gelati, what's going on here? Is she working for the other side? Is she being manipulated? Does she have another reason to kill Maddox? It's, a very odd sort of scene, but very powerful, very intriguing, so a great way to end the episode. And you've got to wonder what exactly is going on with Gelati. So yeah, things are back on track. I maybe don't like it as much as some of the first 3 episodes, but yeah, strong episode. I thought some good stuff with Seven, some good stuff with Gelati, and also with Raffi. So things moving along quite nicely. That's episode 5 of Picard, and I will be back around this time next week with a review of episode 6. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.